satellites climb, and we're gonna watch your flights for a minute at a time with John and Niall, and I guess you just rhyme with Bat Minutes!
You're on Zoom because I've.
Oh,
God. Well,
I can hit the Audacity. Should I hit Audacity record as well? Or
no, let's try out Zoom and hope that it works because my Audacity has been giving me some issues.
okay.
But yes, sorry, listeners, ahoy and welcome to Titanic Talkline. I am Alexia, and I have from Bat Minute, just objectively one of the better titles I've heard about a podcast. Niall McGowan here. Is it Neil or Niall?
No, it's Niall. It's Niall. Yeah.
I said Niall, but I always want to double check because you never know when someone's gonna be like, actually, it's Noel. You're like, well,
yeah. Well, particularly Irish as well. It's just like you're presented with names, and you're just like, even I grew up there, and I'm still like, okay, this could go a variety of ways.
But you got to gear up for that one where you're like, what?
Yeah. Although I have to say though, grew up in Ireland, just down the road from Belfast, where they built a little ship called the Titanic. Yeah.
How fascinating. Is growing up so I grew up near Washington, D.C., which is, capital of the United States, and all the monuments and museums. So everyone has this idea that there's just museums in our backyards. People assumptions about the United States are fascinating, but being that close to Belfast, and especially for people who are interested in Titanic, do they just assume that's what consumes your daily life?
Well, Belfast is they are incredibly proud of the Titanic. So much so that you're kind of you want to tell them it sank, right? They've got this kind of boastful kind of nature to it of they've got the Titanic Quarter, a section of the city is dedicated to Titanic stuff. They've got this great, I don't know if you've ever been.
No.
But they've got this huge museum called the Titanic Museum on one Titanic street, Titanic Town. And it's it's shaped like a ship and stuff. And it's really this huge big thing, and they're just they're so proud of yeah, we built it here. What are they called? The Harland and Wolff.
Yep.
Yeah, they're yeah. I keep always getting mixed up with that evil law firm that was an angel that was called Wolfram and Hart or something.
Oh, I didn't watch Angel. I didn't know that.
Oh, it was just it was when I was a teenager. I was just are those evil? Did that evil law firm also build the Titanic? I was no, it's completely different sounding words. But yeah, they have this kind of thing. I'm oh yeah, we built the unsinkable ship, and you're I guess you guys didn't get the memo. Some other stuff happened.
Hey, I don't want to spoil it for you, but
it did. Yep. Things that there's it'll get to America someday. We didn't say it will get there in good time, but we're waiting to hear back to see that. Although I was always kind of bugged me as well too. They call it the maiden voyage from Southampton. I was they had to get it from Belfast over to Southampton.
That is always interesting, where it's you don't count the transportation time that takes something to get somewhere, because the ship had to get to from A to B to begin with, man.
Yeah. And I'm also because I'm from Ireland, a couple of miles down the road from Belfast, and currently living in Liverpool, which is where the Titanic was registered or something.
Yeah, I think that's where they were headquartered, so that's what's written on the back.
Yeah. So it was always a bit all these cities wanting to. I guess it made sense back when it was built. They're yeah, we all want in on the action. And now it's ooh, but no, it was you guys. You built that thing. You remember that thing you said that could never go under? Yeah, well, that's all on you now.
It's kind of like me watching everyone finally realize that Elon Musk is the worst. It's kind of like that. It's wow, I hope you're glad that you jumped on board that fan ship.
Oh, no, I know a guy who was incredibly proud of his Tesla. And then now you can just see him kind of scrambling on social media to be no, but the car is solid.
It's not. It's not. There's a lot of they call them Tesla bros. I currently live in Austin, Texas too, which is where like there's a Tesla's headquartered. So there's so many of them. And I saw a tweet a long time ago that I love to this day, which is basically like a Tesla bro was trying to talk me up, so I asked what kind of Prius he had.
The weird thing is though, like the guy I know, he's like, I know him through doing podcasting, and he's like 70 plus though. Like he's a retired man. So I don't know if I could call him a bro. Like it feels like there must be a cutoff age for bro.
I mean, I also feel like not everyone that owns a Tesla is a Tesla bro, but like it's a stereotype for sure.
Although this guy boasts about he boasts about this Tesla more than friggin' Belfast boasts about the Titanic. Let me tell you.
Yeah, that's a Tesla bro.
Yeah.
The age doesn't matter. It's the behavior. It's the behavior.
Yeah.
Fan behavior.
Bad new for the Titanic too. Now Belfast is all about. I don't know if you're aware, but they filmed a lot of Game of Thrones there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like anytime it looks gray and miserable, that was filmed in Belfast.
Filmed in Belfast.
So that's their thing now. It's like, we got another one. Like it's like
finally.
People are like, we've been hearing about this Titanic thing for like 100 years now. Like, oh no, we got a new show.
Everyone who's sick of Titanic is like excited.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, no one liked the last couple of seasons of that show. It's like, remember, you used to like it back when it started, though, right?
So I never watched Game of Thrones. I tried. I just couldn't get into it. But my friend and I were out of town the same weekend as the finale of House of Dragons. Premiered. So 3 people watched House of Dragons, two of whom had never watched Game of Thrones. And it was a wild experience, but I have to say that they do make the show look very, very cool. The dragons look pretty neat. Pretty neat dragons.
I mean, yeah, both shows are pretty good. There's a lot more dragons in House of Dragons.
And I will say, like, as someone who has not seen anything, and if you're listening to this expecting that there's not going to be any House of Dragons spoilers, for some reason you're wrong. As soon as I saw a kid on a little dragon landing at a castle where there was a massive dragon, I was like, that dragon's going to eat that dragon. Soon. Like I don't know anything about anything. I don't know who this boy is, but that dragon is going to eat that dragon, and it's going to happen.
Yeah,
and it did.
Yeah. Also, did you continue to watch the rest of the show?
I've never seen any other episodes of it. I have only seen the finale.
I mean, it's a testament to the power of the first episode of House of the Dragon. You're just like, that was all I needed. Like it was, yeah, I got it. You know,
I watched a dude with an eye patch gamble and lose on a game of chicken in real time. It's like, all right.
And then it's just like, you watch Game of Thrones. It's like, well, you know, Game of Thrones. It's the end of the first season. By the time you see a baby dragon, like there's no dragons at all. And then they're like, oh yeah, the last shot of last episode of season 1 is like, there's a dragon. And like, if you watch, now you watch this one episode of the House of Dragon, like, all right, I got friggin' giant dragons. Like,
there was a minimum of 4 dragons.
Yeah, so why would I go and watch a show with like no dragons? It's like, no dragons, but it's got one Sean Bean. You're like, oh, I see.
I watched the animated show, The Dragon Prince, which I enjoy quite a bit. And I will say it kind of has the same pitfall, and that I don't think the dragon itself shows up in present time. Like, there's some like flashbacks to dragon activity, but there's no real-time dragon until like season 2. There's a whole lot of egg. There's a dragon egg.
Yeah, that's pretty much the first season of Game of Thrones. Yeah, it's all
egg.
And then it's just like, oh, and then in the end, it's like, hey, guess what? Because I think the kind of thing is like the first season, you're like, they keep talking about these dragons. I don't think these dragons actually exist. I think these are just random eggs they've got. And then at the end, they're like, holy crap, it was a dragon. So yeah, I think but then of course House of Dragons was like, well, there's freaking dragons flying all over the place. I know that they really exist. So that little doubt isn't there anymore. But
was that supposed to be part of Game of Thrones? As someone who knows nothing about it, was there supposed to be that doubt of like when they found that dragon egg? Was it like, what the fuck is this? Because we've only ever heard of them and well, there's a dog.
Yep.
Was that part of like genuinely part of the premise where people were like, the dragons never existed, or am I like missing?
I'm assuming that your dog's like a fan of Game of Thrones. It's just like, I have to get in this conversation right now.
But, I mean, entirely possible. I do think sometimes he watches TV.
But when you're out of the house, it's like, well, I got to do something. So,
Fair enough.
But no, I think that it's been a long time since I've seen the first season of Game of Thrones. But I remember that being like a kind of, it had this, they'd talk about like sorcery and witchcraft and stuff, and then there's always like, well, there used to be dragons, but all the dragons died. And so there's kind of a little vibe. They're going around with like, these things are going, these are the only surviving dragon eggs, and you're kind of got a bit of like, yeah, I'm sure someone told you that there used to be dragons around here, and then it is kind of a thing at the end where like you keep getting told this one lady's like she can't be burned because she's of like dragon blood, and then she like burns down a house and she walks out completely unscathed, and then she's got a dragon on her shoulder, and it's like holy crap, it was true the whole time. But the rest of the time it's just like, yeah, it's just miserable people in Belfast beheading other miserable people so they could go like I'm king now and stuff like that's. But the thing is, it's a good show, but
there's that part of the reason that I don't like a lot of period film, like sort of like medieval or Viking period films and TV, is because a lot of it is very much that like, and so beheaded so and so to become king.
I'm not big on medieval stuff myself. That show was an exception. Weirdly enough, a lot of like if I see like something, like Marie Antoinette era, like if I see like a powdered wig and something, I'm automatically out.
Time.
Yeah, it's just like a thing. It's like I wanted to watch, that movie, The Favorite, because everyone kept talking like, oh, it's amazing. And then like 2 seconds in, there's like there's an awful lot of powdered wigs in this. And it just hasn't. It's an instinctive like, oh no, I can't.
So I'm assuming you're also not a fan of American colonial dramas.
Well, not particularly, but I think one period piece I do like though, and it's called Titanic.
But I will say Titanic has an unshocking lack of powdered wigs.
Yeah. I don't think are there any wigs in. You think? I mean, Billy
Zane's. That's all. That's all I was going for with Billy Zane's wig. No, I don't think that. I will also say I'm not an expert on fashion or anything, but like I don't think that in that time period wigs were the deal. It was hats.
Yeah.
It was big on the hat like A+ hat game strong. But wigs were, I think that seems like they kind of were ditching the extensions around that time.
Yeah. I'm just caught up in the thing though, because I know Billy Zane went like crazy bald. Like, and I say that as a bald man myself. It's okay. I can say it.
Yeah.
But like I wonder if 97 was it at that level? Because I know, like, I think my knowledge was like he was in the second season of Twin Peaks. I'm assuming that was his hair then. And then like that's like 5 years later is Titanic. So I was like, I wonder if it disappeared, or maybe it was always gone. Maybe it was like back in the 80s it was gone. But
I don't know, because I mean, there are people that go bald or go gray at much younger ages than anticipated. I will also say that I was 8 in 1997, so I did not know much about Billy Zane and still do not. So everything that I know about him is he has been bald.
Oh, so I was only 10 in 1997.
Oh, there you go.
So
but I think 10 is enough of a difference to have a couple years.
Yeah, you get a lot more Billy Zane knowledge packed in those 2 years. To be honest with you, and it was like the Phantom was
the Phantom. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he would. I'm guessing just based on the fact that it was a complete wig and not a toupee that he was probably completely bald. This is a guess. This is a guess from someone who's never worn a toupee.
Oh, like so as far as we're aware, anyway, Alexia, like I'm not going to push you on it, but
I've worn wigs. So I've worn full wigs. Like I've definitely worn like costume wigs or more natural looking ones, and like they cover your whole head. And like he's definitely wearing a whole ass wig. That's not just a hair piece. It looks like a whole thing.
It does feel though like it'd be a missed opportunity on Jim Cameron's part. Maybe he did negotiate with with Billy Zane, but like it feels like in the ruckus of the sinking, a character as pompous as Cal, the wig should come off. Like it should get ruffled, and people should be like, "Holy crap, it was a wig the whole time!" Like that, just to knock him down a little bit more.
But was his character? I think this is one of those stupid questions of it. Was it him or his character? Because it's like, did Cal wear a wig, or did Billy Zane have to wear a wig to portray Cal?
Oh, I totally believe that Cal would wear.
I think he would wear a wig if he was balding. He would 100%.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, definitely. Like he's already so insecure about it.
Yeah. So, it would be like one of those wigs where the top, like he'd have a toupee where the top piece is just like a half a shade too light.
Yeah. They should have worked that in. To be honest with you, in the movie, like it could have been a thing though, because I guess at that point Billy Zane might have been like, I'm a virile young buck. I'm making my way into being a Hollywood lead. Maybe he didn't want to reveal, well, yeah, the hair's going, man. So
honestly, that's probably a large part of it, because like. I was about to say, like, women, they age women out of certain roles at a certain point, but it was kind of like, what, like, men, how do you, I guess losing your hair would be a one way to, like, age you out of certain parts really, really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it was made in a pre-Jason Statham era, so maybe now he could have got away with it. But like, even Jason Statham's he's like a real oddity unto himself because he's just like tough, hard nut. So
I
it
think when
must be
you're
like
involved, you got to lean on somebody like The Rock as your example these
yeah,
days.
yeah. I'm still getting used to the bald rock, to be honest with you. I was so used to like the little flat top he had for so long, and now it's like every time I see him, like, ooh, oh, that's right, you got rid of that, man.
Yeah, that's fair. If you
Yeah.
came into The Rock's world when he was still wrestling, unlike me, you'd be used
Mm.
to that. See, I only came to know him once he really started acting because I was never really into wrestling.
Yeah.
So, and by the time he got into acting, he was completely fucking bald. So,
Mm.
kind of hard
Yeah.
to hide
Yeah.
that. But
One thing it only occurred to me too that because we talked briefly about it like in the green room as as we call it.
behind the scenes.
Yeah, that like I'm one of the hosts of Batman,
Uh-huh.
which is a podcast. Like I know you guys, you guys. I'm used to saying that. It's only you who's hosting the show.
It's just me.
But you
Me
talk
and the
to
dog. I often say we, and because I'm referring to me and my dog, and it makes me sound crazy. But anyway.
it's yeah. Because I'm booking stuff for the show. It's like I do have a co-host, but like
Yeah.
I do all the booking, and I'm always saying we because it makes
We.
it sound like we've got like more stuff going on. It's like it's just
Yeah.
me.
That's kind of yeah. See?
But I know you talked to like Duff and Rob and Joe and stuff from
Oh my
Titanic
god.
Minute. And so much like their show where they broke down Titanic minute by minute,
Hmm.
we're 4 seasons deep into we've done Batman from 1989, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, and last season was the much maligned Batman and Robin. Which is
Sorry.
no, it's not to say it was easier to get through minute by minute. Like
I
actually,
mean, I imagine that with a minute by minute film, one that you can kind of rip apart makes it easier.
yeah, I came out from it with a lot more respect for the
Oh, there you
movie.
go.
And it is people come on and like they always had the same kind of note of like, yeah, looking at it now when you know what it is, it's like great for the first like half hour, and then it
Sure.
kind of hits a like, oh my god, I've still got an hour and a half of this to go. But like when you're doing minute by minute, it's like, oh, it's a minute a week is fine, or like
Right.
3 minutes a week or whatever. But
Right.
but one of the big notes we had because we had to deal a lot with obviously Chris O'Donnell, 90s heartthrob.
Oh, Chris O'Donnell.
And one of my favorite bits of trivia, I don't know if you know this yourself,
Probably
Alexia,
not.
but when they were casting for Robin in Batman Forever, it was down to Chris O'Donnell and Leonardo DiCaprio. And apparently what they did was they went around a Comic-Con, like a much less a big a deal back then, but like whatever Comic-Con they had.
Way back Comic-Con.
Yeah, like back in like I guess what was 93 or 94?
Early 90s, yeah.
Yeah, and they went around and they had a picture of Chris O'Donnell and a picture of DiCaprio. And they just said to a bunch of 10 like no, they actually said to a bunch of like 10-year-old kids, who do you think would win in a fight? And all the kids agreed, like, oh no, Chris O'Donnell would like knock the crap out of this DiCaprio guy. And then when I brought it up on the show, like every other person was just like, yeah, no, that's like that stands. Like it's all reasoning.
That's the best thing I've learned. Oh,
but no,
I love 10-year. I hate children, but I love children sometimes. You're like, oh, that's a good question though, and honestly, they were right.
Yeah, I think so. I still think today, even.
Yeah, because I'm not, which might shock people. I am not a Leo stan. I liked him in Titanic, but I didn't really like follow his career or anything. And I gotta say, I haven't seen the movie, but I've like seen the trailers, I've seen clips and stuff. And I'm like, I just don't know if it would have. He's not a bad actor. I don't want to. I just don't know if it would have worked with him in the role.
Yeah.
I don't know if he had quite the like necessary knowledge of like kind of how ridiculous and comedic it was. Like you have to take yourself seriously and go beyond serious and be a little ridiculous. And I think maybe he was still taking himself too seriously.
Yeah.
I
mean, but yeah,
not on that movie.
Although I do know also because it was all the summer of '97, 2 roles that Chris O'Donnell apparently was in contention for and didn't get it was Men in Black with the role that would go to Will Smith. They also went to the Comic-Con. It's like, if one of these guys was to smack one another, who do you think would be most likely to smack someone? And they're like, that Will Smith guy, I guess.
Again, I think that was the right choice.
It's like somehow they knew even then. But it actually would have been the reunion of Chris O'Donnell and Tommy Lee Jones from Batman Forever into Men in Black. But apparently he was also up for Jack in Titanic.
I did know that.
So the reason it popped in my mind is because of all the wig talk. The last time I was watching Titanic, so I'm so used to seeing mid-90s Chris O'Donnell with this kind of like 90s trendy buzz cut, and
Right.
there's like sparkle, earring and stuff. I was kind of like, would he have had to have grown out the hair? Or
Probably.
would they? You can't have non-floppy Jack. Like it's the kind of the boyish flop hairdo is like half the character.
It was so very 90s too. It's really interesting when I haven't rewatched Titanic on the big screen since the 90s, but I've seen it obviously since then. And on the one hand, they get the costume so incredibly right, but then Cameron or whoever would make these incredibly like anachronistic decisions where it's like, I'm sorry, who in 1912 had 90s boy band hair?
That's where
Like
the first boy bands originated in 1908. They called it the Jolly Boys or something.
the pocket janglers. It's fucking ridiculous. Yeah, I like. I haven't seen a lot of the Batman movies, and I will also say that I haven't seen a lot of like the TV shows or anything either. But have you seen the HBO Max Harley Quinn show?
Oh yeah, love the Harley Quinn
I
show.
love that show, and
Mm.
I really do. And as someone who is not a fan and who I didn't have any preconceived like ideas outside of like I'd seen some of them, like I'd seen the Nolan films and I'd seen like the Suicide Squad films, so I had like that. And I think, I'd seen various clips over the years of like who Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn were.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like the characters they've created for everyone in that show. I think they're my favorites.
Yeah, well, that's the thing now because we obviously had to talk a lot about Poison Ivy last season because that was she's one of the villains in Batman and Robin, and that's such a completely different kind of interpretation of the character. But in my mind, like every time we're talking, like, well, if you were to do Poison Ivy now, like who would you have play the part? And so many people kept saying like Aubrey Plaza because they were thinking of the Harley Quinn TV shows. Like, well, that's who you get to do that. And I was like, also like, just get Lake Bell to do it. Like
Lake Bell would be great.
But it's so in people's minds. I think the public perception of that character has moved much more towards what the HBO show is like building on, and like Uma Thurman is great in the movie, but she's doing like a completely like she's going for like Tallulah Bankhead, kind of Marlene Dietrich, like old vampy. Grand Guinal, so really trying to like ham it up and stuff. And she's just so unashamedly sort of the character in the movie is flat out sexist as well. There's no kind of way around it. But like I think nowadays they'll be like, I hope there will be a better interpretation. I think the one we came up with that was, and I don't know if you saw Matt Reeves' The Batman that came out last year.
I did not, but that was one that I actually wanted to see because I think I'm not a Twilight fan, but I'm a fan of Robert Pattinson.
Oh, he's great in it. He is,
and that's what I heard.
Yeah, he like is Bruce Wayne is like the thing is that Bruce Wayne is just like his early days, so people were giving out about it. I'm like, just give him. He's got Jack Dawson hair in it. Actually, he's got the floppy. It's more emo era though. It's more like there's a bit of mascara mixed into the hair.
They got the guy liner going on.
Oh, total 100%. But yeah, I was forgiving. I was like, well, he's early days, so he's going to become the Bruce Wayne, probably like the next movie. But his Batman is freaking great. Like
that's what I heard.
Yeah, he's in the suit like most of the time too. Like 90% of the movie, he's just walking around as Batman. It's like usually they can't wait to get out of that suit. But
it does seem annoying.
Yeah, but no, like he's really really terrific in it. But the movie is like it's gritty. It's like it's it's like, oh, it has to be realistic and stuff, and it's like, well, yeah, whatever. They gotta just make it a bit zanier. Come on, man. But like because I kind of thought that they're gonna go in that like direction of like it has to be gritty and like depressingly real, and like it was basically like Seven. They were really like recreating David Fincher 7 in it. I was like, you should do Poison Ivy. It's like a serial killer, but what she does is like she buries men alive, and then she uses their body to like grow plants and stuff. So like she fills them full of some crap, and then like their arms are sticking out of the ground.
It's
So
like
like
Sweeney Todd colliding with Batman.
yeah. I was just like, that'd be great. And there's like Batman finds this like friggin' like a whole like a field full of like dead guys with like all these hands sticking up out of the ground, but they've got like roses and stuff growing out of them. And it's like, that'd be amazing. And the way that last movie went, it's kind of like that could be the angle they take. But yeah, we'll have to
I think
see.
that when you look at the comics, and again, as someone who hasn't really read them, but who, I know I have a lot of friends who did, is that the inherent nature of a lot of these comics, not all of them, because some of them were, darker, gritty, but a lot of them were inherently kind of silly and campy, and, things would happen that are completely unrealistic because it's a comic book and that can totally happen.
Yeah.
And I like that they brought that back to the Harley Quinn show. And another thing that I liked about the show is that because it's a show, you have more time to really get into characters in a way that you don't have when you've only got 90 minutes to 3 hours to tell a story. When you get 3 to 8 seasons of a show, you could tell a much bigger story. And I like that in this show so far, it's allowing in my view, the characters to develop in a very modern way, but they're still holding on to a lot of what made them very, very campy and charming in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yeah,
when they were made.
Oh yeah, it's got a good mixture of flimsy and silly, but also this really dark, violent edge to it.
Yeah, like spoilers for the show for anyone who's listening and hasn't seen it, but like that's the silliness that we're talking about. Like, I don't know. There's a part where Harley tells Ivy to get out of the room because she and Joker are going to make out and it's going to get gross, and it's kind of like funny. But then in season 3, there's an episode where they get trapped in Bruce Wayne's mind, and it's just them being trapped over and over again in the memory of his parents dying.
It's like I remember watching that, but like it's like one of the best Batman stories.
It
like
was
this little 20-minute episode. It's like one of the best ones.
It was and it was super crazy because the solution to it is, Harley actually ends up talking to, young Bruce Wayne and getting him to open up. And it goes into the concept, like the whole show as a concept goes into codependency, releasing yourself from trauma, understanding who you are. If you read the comics, there's the comics they made for the show, there was a whole side plot with Poison Ivy confronting, the memories of her parents. And there's a really deep dive into what makes people into who they are. Which I think is really interesting because, you go into this whole Batman thing and you realize that he's stuck. The reason he is the way that he is because he is stuck being, how old was he at the time? 11, 12?
10.
10, yeah. Little. He's stuck in this little kid memory and can't get out.
Yeah. I know that show is done like really, really. This thing is some of the actual story arcs, like just even in terms of the action that happens in it, is like really good. That's just like that would just be a great movie. Like not even like a because it's a comedy show. It's like no, you take the comedy out. That is a story. Like even the whole business at the end of like the first season, like Joker builds this big weird tower and stuff.
Right.
Like everyone he's kind of destroys Gotham, and then the next season it's just like it's like a no man's land, and everyone's doing this, that, and the other. And it's like there you go. That's a movie right there. Just set that up right now. And to be fair though, spoilers for the Batman. There is a kind of vibe of like, well, the city's pretty wrecked at the end here, so maybe next season we might get something. Or I was like, yeah, the Riddler's running the university now. That's just the way that is.
Yeah.
I was really curious actually during that. There's episodes where Clayface goes to university, and it's when Batgirl is introduced.
Yeah.
And he's really blatantly dressed up as Cher Horowitz from Clueless.
He really does look like he is, like with the shoulder pads and the suit and everything.
Yeah. But because they're introducing Batgirl in that episode, and then who played Batgirl in Batman and Robin? Alicia Silverstone. So it's like, is that a deliberate cross reference joke?
Did she really?
Oh yeah. She's not great in it. I got to be honest with you. Like it was a bit heartbreaking because like everyone, like Arnold Schwarzenegger is doing great and Uma Thurman's doing great, and then it's like I love Alicia Silverstone, and then she's like, no, she's woefully miscast and stuff. But
boo.
Yeah,
I thought she was fine, but I mean, I'm also pretty forgiving. If you're not horribly bad, and if you don't like, it's one of those things where I'm like, if you're not bringing down the whole tone of the show with how terrible that you are, I'm far more likely to let your silliness pass, or like whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
If
yeah.
it's I think we've all seen a show or seen a movie where someone is so bad that it brings everyone else down.
Mm, mm,
And it's just
mm.
like, okay, you suck. But it's like, I don't think that she was so bad that I noticed it. I didn't mind her, but I also will say that I do think that her character, at least for me, was a pretty slow burn
Yeah,
as
yeah.
a concept anyway.
Although again, there's actually another, and I didn't know this until we did the show, but there's another like direct line to Titanic
Mm-hmm.
in Batman and Robin. I don't know if like obviously they both came out in the summer of '97. But like there's one that I was just like, holy crap, that's incredible. I had no idea. Where I don't know if you remember much about Batman and Robin, but
I've never seen it.
um, oh well, Alicia Silverstone appears, and I think she's introduced as, and this is weird because we kept hopping from like a draft script, which was
Mm-hmm.
different, to the actual movie. And I think in the movie she's Alfred's niece,
Okay.
and then in the original script, all the implications is like, oh, this is Margaret Clark's girl. You remember me telling you about Margaret Clark, don't you, Bruce? And Bruce having this kind of like, oh, that's right, you told me about Margaret Clark, Alfred. And there's all these kind of implications throughout. It's like, are they saying that he might be your dad? Like, that seems to be an implication in the original script. And then I guess they try to simplify it, and we're like, Margaret Clark was now Alfred's sister.
Hmm.
And the thing is, the Alfred in those movies is played by Michael Goff, and he was, without exaggeration, about 87 years old when he
Okay.
filmed it.
Excellent.
Uh, and then he shows a picture of like, this is her mother, my beloved sister Margaret, or Peg as they end up calling him, which
Egg.
we made a lot of jokes about it. Don't worry, we made the Peg jokes. And the thing is, the picture they use of Peg is actually Gloria Stewart, but like back in like 1930 something.
Okay.
So Gloria Stewart of the Old Rose. And then
Right.
we're sitting there going like, so you're trying to tell me Alicia Silverstone's in this film? She's like 18 years old, and you're telling me like that her mother had that photo taken that looks like literally it was taken in like 1936 or something. And it's like, I'm not saying it's impossible, but she
I'm
must
saying
have
it's
been
unlikely.
like, she would have been like, she had Alicia Silverstone when she's 70, is what the movie is positing and stuff. But with all the outrageous
Yeah.
things that's going on, maybe that's why they had to ham up everything else. And they're like, well, people are going to question whether like that Alfred would have a niece of this age. It's like, surely Alfred's niece should be near retirement age herself at this point. Um, but yeah, I always thought it was so weird. It's like it's Gloria Stewart, and I think it was just like an old, like a stock photo they had of her.
Huh.
So it was like they're like, oh, just, yeah, we need something, yeah, just use this one, like we have the rights to this image from some old movie.
Right.
And then it was just, weird timing, I guess, that like Gloria Stewart would be in like the movie that was like the biggest hit, the most beloved film of all time in the summer of 1907, and then back like a week later she's in like the most reviled, one of the most detested films of all time, the film that killed the comic book movie for like a couple of years, in Batman and Robin. So like, and then she like died like a year later or something. She's like, I've done it all, I guess. Just
She was like,
wiped her hands
bye.
and just sat back. Yeah, sat back and then had a dream about not her husband, the father of her children, but some guy she knew in a boat like 80 years ago. Which
Yeah.
is
So
always a thing that sticks in my craw with Titanic. Is like, you're telling me you had a husband and a family, and like, what? He's just, you're dying. You're thinking about this guy. What the hell?
that's always been a thing that even I noticed when I was a kid, and that it's like, listen, I am a child and I know nothing about the world, but that seems at least an acknowledgement should be given to what is clearly the late Mr. Calvert. Did I get his name right? I have no idea. I'm very, very bad at remembering names, but because we've circled back to it a little bit, and I didn't actually ask you, I just immediately launched into a discussion about Batman and Harley Quinn on a show
No,
about Titanic.
I mean, that's what I'm, like most discussions I have will inevitably breach into Batman
I
material.
don't mind.
So,
But what is your Titanic story? Everyone has one.
well, Well, I wasn't on the Titanic. I should confess that.
Well, that's
But
why I invited you here. So, thank you for joining us.
it's been 84. Actually, no, now it's 100 years. It's over
Oh
100
my
years now.
God. 85 plus 24. No, 84 plus 25.
It's 110 years.
109 or 110?
Well, it's
Whatever it is.
1912, so I guess if it's
Jesus Christ,
2023.
I'm so bad at math.
So it could be
Okay.
100.
2023 minus 1912 equals 111.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I was
That was
tragedy. I was
painful.
not. I was not on the Titanic. But no, I went to. I was 10 years old. To be fair to you, it wasn't a movie that particularly like got my interest when it first came out because it was just I mean that when it first came out because it was just
Right.
like why would I care about that? Like it doesn't whatever. And
Right. It wasn't
so
quite for you in the moment.
yeah, but then after like 4 months in the cinema and everyone going on about it, it was just like you have to see this thing. Like it's just a cultural moment. And so I grew up in a small town in Ireland. There was thankfully they had just opened the cinema near in the one town over because back when I was a little kid, you had to travel for like miles to get to the cinema. There was nothing in the town. But thankfully, just that year they had opened the cinema.
Hmm.
And so try to go out 10-year-old to see Titanic. Couldn't get in because it was sold out. And so I had to go see A Life Less Ordinary, starring Ewan McGregor and Cameron Diaz. And then so we thought that was whatever. And then tried the next week, went out, couldn't get in. Had to go to see A Life Less Ordinary, starring Ewan McGregor and Cameron Diaz
Oh
again.
man.
And then the third attempt, got in to see Titanic, and was sitting eating loads of sweets. And halfway through the film, I had to go up and be sick, and basically had to go home midway through the movie because I was throwing up, and it was entirely just from
All
sweets.
the sugar.
Yeah. And so then I think like somewhere towards its run, like the end of the run,
Right.
it was like, okay, I'm gonna get out to this. And so eventually then I did sit down and watch the whole thing and been 10 years old, quasi edgelord. I was like, Titanic, screw this movie, man. It was whatever. And then that kind of held as like years went by, whereas I was like, it's fine, who cares? And then the more I watch it, I've seen it a bunch of times over the years now. And you would have had like minor, like my brother was really into it because he was just older and he was more into the cultural zeitgeist. So he'd keep you informed of things of like Nicola Charles from Australian Soap Neighbors is going out with Tommy from Titanic. I'm like, whoa, that was all in all the gossip rags and stuff back in the day. But as it went on, then I was just like, would watch bits of it and be like, it's fine, it's whatever. And then I did a proper big rewatch when those guys, the Midnight Boys, were doing Titanic Minute. I was like, well, I'll watch it along with them. Had the annoying thing of was watching it like a minute a day, and then on Netflix, and then Netflix took it off at about minute 70. So pain in the ass right there.
It sounds like you just this film seems to have a grudge against you.
Yeah, it's just the Titanic it will not get into my eyeballs. It will fundamentally refuse.
So how many times did it take before you actually saw the movie?
I think I did see it like in the fourth attempt in the cinema in its entirety. I think I sat through the whole thing then. But yeah, so then the Midnight Boys, like I finished it out with them, but watching it segment by segment wasn't like the best experience of it. So then in very recent years, I was like, okay, Titanic's on. It was Christmas time or something. I was like, oh well, I'll sit and watch it. And that was the time, like 25 years later or whatever it was. But at the end, like particularly in the last hour, I was like, holy crap, this is like a really good movie. It only kind of dawned on me, but like I'm still not completely into the Jack and Rose of it all. Like it's fine. Like I don't have anything against it, but like just the sheer like scale of it. I think maybe now it might be to do with the fact that we have so many movies that are like CGI overload, where there's just like Avengers Endgame is like, it's great and all,
Yeah.
but it's just like
Yeah.
it's a bunch of CGI stuff. It's whatever.
Yeah.
And James Cameron himself is like, he is Ishmael these days, going like, you have to come out and see my giant thing that I made, this big CGI monstrosity that no one has ever seen. And you're
Right.
like, whatever, Jim.
Whatever, dude.
But because it's all CGI, and not the detract from CGI artists, because I'm sure it's a lot of
No,
work
no, no,
goes into it.
no.
But then to look at Titanic now, it's just like, holy crap, that's big. That's like the amount of work to do all that practically, to have to make those sets and to
Yeah.
have all these people doing all this stuff, and to actually like sit and look like looks like the boat's broken in two. It looks like they're falling down into the sea. It's like, this is incredible. Like, how did you do this? This is amazing. But so yeah, I think time has only been kinder to Titanic as it's gone on, because my appreciation for it has definitely grown. Has been like, you know what, Jim, you did a good job with that movie. Just in terms of like showing a boat sinking, who knew it could be so exciting? But yet it was.
Yeah, he does a really good job at it. And, I know that people are I know that there's sort of like a 50-50 split on the love story.
Mm.
With people who like it and people who don't like it. I kind of am neutral on it, in that, like, I think if the film had been made without it, I would still like it. But since it's been made with it in there, I like it the way that it is.
So yeah, like the vibe I get from picking up on what you've said in conversation already, not a Leo stan and not that fussed on the love story. It's kind of like, I was kind of anticipating that you were going to be like, it's the greatest love story ever made,
I
starring the
think
greatest
it's
actor
a
of all time.
I think it's a really good example of an equal relationship. I think that's why I like it a lot. And, so I grew up, in my formative years were in like the 90s and the aughts. So
Hmm.
every movie and TV show around that time was dedicated to, you need to look this specific way, you need to wear these clothes, you need to change. You are a girl in this world, you need to change to be this way. And
Hmm.
even if it wasn't outrightly stated, it was always implied by having these like makeover movies where, the girl's no longer she's not attractive until she goes through this procedure, makeover, haircut, or glasses removal, where suddenly she's just like, whoa, amazing, and suddenly worthy of your attention. But I
Hmm.
liked in Titanic that Jack, and to, in a way, like, he just never asked her to be a different person. He just asked her to be her. He liked her because she was who she was.
Hmm.
And that always stuck out with me, is that, she didn't have to change herself to become someone she wasn't. She changed to become who she actually was. Like, she actually was fun and a little sarcastic, Rose,
Hmm.
and wanted to do things that weren't all being fancy. So it's like, she did change, but it wasn't because she wanted to please a man. It was because, oh, I've always wanted to do these things, and you think it's cool that I want to do these things.
Yeah, I, I can't remember. I don't think there's any moments too where Jack is like derogatory towards her for
No,
being
he
rich.
isn't.
Do you think that? I think in other movies there have been like, oh, the poor little rich girl, have to knock her down a peg or two, and there'll be some
Yeah.
kind of comment on the fact like, well, you wouldn't know. But like, and thinking back, it's like, yeah, he is very he kind of gets her on.
Hmm.
Although I think in the recent time I watched it, I did see it's incredibly true that like Jack is like manic pixie dream boy.
Yeah,
Like,
that title is not incorrectly applied in its own way.
yeah, it's just because there's not much. He is just like bandy legged, good time guy. Not much depth to him. Like, he's a cipher to get to the character of Rose, which it happens. It's just that it's usually applied by like 20 something white indie male filmmakers to like a Kate Winslet or a Natalie Portman. Although Kate Winslet, of course, actually brilliantly sort of deconstructed the manic pixie dream girl in Eternal Sunshine. So I shouldn't have mentioned her there, because she's actually the exact opposite of that type of thing in that
But it
movie.
happened to a lot of actresses, like, where they just got cast in that role. Like, this is
Mm.
your role. Well, it happened to Keira Knightley and Elizabethtown. Elizabethtown? Was that her?
Um, that's Kirsten Dunst.
Is it Chris?
Kirsten Dunst.
Hang on. I don't know anything about anything.
I
I didn't watch that one either. So,
say I remember it being like a little heartbreak when
you're right. It was Kirsten Dunst was in that. But I mean, like, yeah, she got the treatment in that movie. And then
mm,
Zooey Deschanel got that treatment in 500 Days of Summer. Ramona
yeah.
Flowers got it in a little bit less, but still, in Scott Pilgrim. Like,
I
it's
think
just,
the annoying thing about those two is that in 500 Days of Summer, it's kind of like, I think the movie's trying to make it's kind of depending on you to know that Joseph Gordon-Levitt's perspective of things is wrong. And then like he's himself is like come out years later and like, he's not like the hero of the. I guess he's like the hero because he's the main character, but he's not like everything he's doing about this is like she's told him from the word go. She didn't believe in love and all this kind of stuff.
Well, it's like all those people that they like. Oh god, I'm gonna forget the name. Was it Chuck Palahniuk who wrote Fight Club? Who was like people who think Tyler's a hero have never read the book.
Yeah. And then the same thing was because like I love the Scott Pilgrim movie, but I do too. Yeah, terrific movie, but like you read the comics, and the biggest casualty in the translation is Ramona because she's much more complex in the books.
I believe that.
Yeah, and they just have so much more of her going on, and then it's just like this movie can't be 5 hours long. We have to like suddenly jump from like all that business where she's just like, oh, he's in my head. No, literally, he's in my head. She has a little switch in her back. It's like none of that's in the books because it's like, well, there's a lot more to the relationship than that. But then gets to Edgar Wright's is like, we gotta wrap it up, man. We got time to get into this. So it's the only thing that's like, in order to give you this great movie, I'm gonna have to take away from I'm gonna have to just concentrate on this Scott guy and not give you the depth of Ramona, which is very unfortunate. And the thing with Elizabethtown too is I was really heartbroken because I wanted to go see that with my first girlfriend when I was in university. Like when I got to university, I got myself a girlfriend finally. And I remember I was a huge fan of Almost Famous, one of my all-time favorite movies. And Cameron Crowe's next movie was Elizabethtown.
Right.
And I remember my girlfriend at the time been like, I'm not going to see that. It looks like it's friggin' trash. What the hell's that? And I was like, whoa, it's from the guy who made Almost Famous. Well, how dare you? But we didn't go to it. And then years later, apparently, she was proven right because everybody just completely says like, "Oh, Elizabethtown was just a disaster," and it was insulting to everybody who was involved and or watched it. So,
oof, your movie's good when that's the reaction you get. I love Titanic, obviously. It's one of my favorite films. I think it's beautiful. I absolutely love Kate Winslet as Rose. I do like the Jack and Rose relationship. But again, like if the movie had been made without it, I can see myself still really liking the movie. Obviously, that's not how it was made, so I can't comment on that. But
the thing is, because the whole crashing of the boat, it's like a good hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's half the film.
Yeah, so that's a good that's the movie. Like if you want to make a shorter movie, there it is right there. Just cut all that stuff out, have it by itself. But
yeah,
although it would just be like endless people falling off stuff, but like
and screaming.
Hey, it's entertaining, and then of course you wouldn't have I'm sure you probably have heard of before from a lot of male guests, but like one of the big allures of Titanic as well is like it's got like full frontal nudity in it as well, which is like for a 10-year-old kid, it was like, what?
Like what's happening?
Yeah. So one of my other prime memories of the movie is that when we were, when you're in school, near the end of term, they'll wheel in the TV and there's like, we're not teaching anything. And one of the tapes in rotation was Titanic. And then we just remember my music teacher just sitting, just waiting. And he's just like, as soon as French girls were mentioned, he's just like, all right, just up,
fast forwarding.
Like, avert your eyes, children. And everyone's like, oh, sir, come on, no, come on. I saw it in the cinema. Like, no. All right, I think they're done. And then like, oh, sit back down. Oh Christ, they're in the car now. Oh geez, all right, fast forward.
I gotta say, so I watched the movie somewhat recently with my friend and her 10-year-old daughter who was seeing it for the first time. And my friend hadn't seen it in a long time, so she didn't really remember it. And after the movie, she even turned to me and was like, that was far less like in terms of sex, at least. She was like, that was way less graphic than I remember it being. Like, I think in her memory, like it was a big deal. The car scene was like more like a modern sex scene where it was like, no, it's more like 12 seconds.
Yeah. Although, like, I think the last time I was watching, I was like the fact they steam up the entire car and it's just so sweaty. It's like, Jesus,
what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, how intense was the friction going on here?
Yeah, like that's I play roller derby and sometimes you get like disgusting. Let me just say, I have never then gotten into my car when it's cold and then had the car just go. It's never happened.
The fact that it steams up once, they wipe the thing away and it steams up again by the time you get in there.
It's just like, ew. One of you needs to get your thyroid checked out.
I guess maybe Rose she was very repressed, with I can't imagine sex with Cal if there was any, but it wasn't all that great. So yeah, maybe she was just waiting for a good old
For a
fashioned
good one.
blowout. Yeah,
he was like, great, I'm finally gonna have an orgasm. Yes.
I will also say too, actually, if you are in need of any guest recommendations,
Always.
lady, well, actually, I have two, but one in particular, both of them have been on Bat Minute several times, and they were both actually on Titanic Minute during the sex scene. Those, I think, the Midnight Boys, they opted out. They're like, we can't have 30 odd something.
Did they opt out or were they voluntold out?
I'm choosing to believe that they were like good taste dictates that we should separate from this. But a good friend of both of them are good friends of mine, not through doing podcasting. Never met them in person, but through pod friends. Allison Grimm.
Yeah, I remember Allison.
And Liz Whitaker. And Liz had her own show.
I remember Liz.
Mean Girls Minute. Liz is very good. She's very sardonic. She has a kind of way about her where you're like, half the time, do you even like me, Liz? And then she's like, of course I do, but I just seem like I don't.
Yeah, tag me in an email with them. I'm always looking to have new people on the show because I didn't start this show to show off how much I know about Titanic. I started this to connect with other people who like Titanic. So
yeah. The one I'm really intrigued by, just to get her story totally, is because Allison is like, if you ever see her, she's like proper like sleeve of tattoos. She's into like really bizarre, gory horror stuff. Like she's one of the few people I know who's like reading constantly, so I'm always going to her for book recommendations. And it's always like, oh, I read this great book. It's called like The Cult That Shoved Chainsaws Up Their Ass or something. Like she's into this really intense horror stuff. And she just looks like, yeah, she'd be like, she's really like, out there alternative girl, as they call it. And then to find out she's like, oh, my favorite film's Titanic. Like I absolutely I was raised on Titanic. I absolutely love it. So it's just such a kind of weird thing of like, oh, it's such a classical like. It's like her turn around and like, of course I love Barbies, and you're like, oh right. Like I thought you weren't like other girls, Allison, but turns out
my favorite color is pink, and people don't suspect that out of me. So, but yeah,
you know what I mean. Though.
I do. There every once in a while you find stuff out about people, and you're like, really?
I mean, we had her on recently. We're upcoming hiatus episode. Batman when between seasons we do, like after the '89 movie because Prince did the soundtrack.
Right.
We did like, all right, we're doing reviews of all the Prince movies, like Purple Rain, on the gem. And then because Joel Schumacher directed Phantom of the Opera, we had Alison on for a great episode. And this is she is another one of those people who's like, I was a Phantom girl. Yeah. Like back in the day, I was the emo kid who just fucking loved Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but yeah, about the Transformers, because I'm sure like both of them always up for talking about anything.
Yeah, tell them to make a little thread. I'd be glad to have them on because I'm always looking for different people's interest and perspective because everyone's story in relation to their story is so different.
Yeah.
I have kept you for a while. Number one, and number two, listeners who don't know, I absolutely made a disaster of my goddamn morning. So I think I pushed Niall off like 3 times because firstly, I misunderstood how to calculate time from America to Britain. And then me and my other guest were running late. So it was just kind of like, well, this is happening. This big shipwreck that is my life continues to crash into icebergs.
Don't worry about it. Like there's haven't done 4 seasons of a show. My arch nemesis now is daylight savings.
Ugh, God.
Particularly in the US, where you guys have it in some states and in some other states just do it whenever.
You're going to be on this call for another 45 minutes if I even start on daylight savings time because it's just nope, I cannot take that bait. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Believe me, I didn't even get to tell you the story of the time I crashed. Well, I didn't crash a boat myself, but I was on a crashed boat.
What did you do?
We had
you started that story in a way that implies you did something.
No, actually, I didn't do anything. I make it sound more outrageous, like I was more involved, but I was in a little a boat that sunk.
Oof.
And I actually highly recommend it as a holiday if anyone's over in Ireland. There's you can do a boat trip up the Shannon River where you yourself.
Great sales pitch.
You basically have it's a little houseboat, like a little tiny dinghy houseboat, and me and 3 of my friends. We're like, we're gonna go up the Shannon. It's gonna be great. And on day 3, they have this big stressor of just follow the markers on the map because you have to drive the boat yourself, obviously.
Right.
and it's follow the boat. Don't never stray from the markers. And so just distinctly remember on like the evening of day 3 of a week-long trip, one of my friends was making bolognese sauce, chopping up carrots for bolognese sauce, and I was debating with him about like, you don't put carrots in bolognese.
You don't put carrots in bolognese sauce. You're right.
Well, no, but the thing is, that guy is now a professional chef, and he will fucking fight to the death to argue that you do, apparently. But
I'll argue with him.
Yeah, but and then another guy was just driving, and then friggin' out of nowhere, just and we just drove headfirst into a giant black rock, and we're just like, "Oh, well, that seemed pretty bad." I was like, "We're okay." And then, like 10 minutes later, I went down to use the bathroom, opened it, and just seen this water gushing in. And we had a whole giant panic, and we're doing the thing of like the cartoon thing of getting like the buckets and like freaking throwing the water back out over the edge, even though it made no difference. And,
what else are you supposed to do?
Yeah. Then we were just like, this boat is going down, and then we noticed behind us there was another boat coming, and
you just hop aboard.
Yeah, the thing is that they were coming like, oh, coming over to you, and we're like, no, stay back. And apparently, it turns out they were following us, and they were Russian tourists who didn't speak any English. We were really desperately trying to convey to them, just like, don't come near the boat. And then this poor guy was like, this guy just stripped down to his Speedo, jumped in, swam over, and we had to try to communicate to him, like, the boat's going down, man. What are we doing?
Oh no!
Basically, with the lifeboats, went over. They saved us, and in classic Russian style, they just opened a bottle of vodka. There you go.
I was gonna say, was that how they fortified you with some vodka?
Yeah, and we were like, because we all think it was gonna be like we're gonna have to get airlifted out of here or something. Like it was really like we're in the middle of the goddamn lock. We can't swim through this water. Are you crazy? And the thing is, we're just like, oh, and we came back to the rental people. And we're like, we're so sorry. Oh my god, we'll go home. We'll just keep the money, whatever. And they were like, oh no, don't worry about it. Just take another boat out.
I guess that's what you got insurance for.
Yeah, and they were just like, no, this happens all the time. Just go. You're going up that route, go down the other route. And then the next morning, we just had another boat, and we just finished the trip. It was actually a really lovely trip.
Well, I have to do that now because that sounds amazing.
It is. But, you know, try to work your way up to Belfast into the Titanic water, and if you can sink in there,
just make a statement.
Yeah, just like, you see what this looks like. This is what happened, you damn boat.
Just do the Jack Sparrow and step up onto the dock, and then go, see, children, this is called a shipwreck. Shipwreck. And the thing in the water is a sunken boat.
All the kids are like, can we watch this Titanic movie? And they're like, only the first like hour and a half of it.
Only
and you
have
to fast forward through certain scenes as well. Okay.
Yeah, then it's gonna get real fast for a while, and you're all gonna go get snacks, and then we'll watch the rest.
It's like, yeah, they made love in a car.
That's it. All right, now before I let you go, what's coming up on Bat Minute?
Well, this season, and actually, I'll extend you an invitation, Alexia, because we're always looking for fresh perspectives ourselves.
I will all definitely come on Bat Minute.
Oh, you're more than welcome to. We're gearing up, actually, just in the upcoming weeks to start recording minute-by-minute coverage of Batman Mask of the Phantasm, because we didn't want to jump straight into the Christian Bale movies. And we're like, there was one other theatrically released Batman
I've never even heard of this movie.
It's like the Batman's fan Batman movie. It's it's people who really love Batman are like, it's the best one.
Okay.
But it's from it's a spinoff from the animated series. You know, the one that had
the Batman animated film.
Yeah, you know, Mark Hamill as the Joker
is
in it and stuff. It was the official theatrical release from that, and it is great.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, if you want to come on, I would, because we as you might imagine, in a podcast about Batman, like, thankfully, I think we've run the gamut of guests in terms of, like, we've had people from different genders, races, you know, people in between, all this kind of stuff. We always want to get people's fresh perspectives. But we do also have a lot of people who come on where it's like, yeah, I saw this movie and I loved it. So
I've never seen it, so I would be watching it exclusively for this podcast. I might even take a leaf out of some of the Titanic Minute guests and simply watch that 1 minute.
Oh, yeah, that's the Liz Whittaker special, I believe. I think Liz just continues that in another show as it is their show.
Sweet.
Don't even know what this.
Well, I've never seen the movie, so I might end up watching the whole thing and just being excited about it.
The thing is, it's only like 70 minutes too. I
Yeah,
think that's
that's not
why
bad.
we had a kind of like it was again after the end of Batman and Robin too, where it's just like
Yeah.
that's like a solid 2 hours, and also
Yeah.
the end credits end on a song by R. Kelly, and we're like, we can't end like this. We gotta have something. We can't, we can't see out the 90s on this note. So we go into like Mask of the Phantasm, much better movie, much shorter, thankfully as well. We can speed through it.
The palate
But
cleanser.
yeah. So you're more than welcome to come on, and that will
Yeah.
be sometime in mid 2023. That'll be
Yeah.
premiering.
Definitely just email me when you need me to be available and what minutes I need to watch.
Well, that's the if you want to watch it in advance and then stake a claim, there are minutes still available. But if
Nah,
you're
just surprise me.
No problem.
Slap me on a minute that no one else wanted.
I'll see. I'll have to check. Are there any boats in the movie?
If there's boats, teacups, or dogs,
Oh, there's a robot dog.
I do like dogs.
It's such it's good because like a lot of people the Harley Quinn show feels like the kind of slightly more outrageous continuation.
Okay, yeah, I like that tone. I think that again, for me, not having grown up with comics, like it has a very comic feel to me in a way that makes it seem very true to its source. Like I'm not saying that in a diminished way, but it's like actually I like that. I like that it kind of lends credence to the fact that it comes from a world that is kind of, I mean, I say ridiculous, but I don't mean it in a bad way.
Yeah. Oh, that was like when the last movie was coming out, like the Robert Pattinson one.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love that movie. It's like it does a great job. It's very derivative of other films, but it's still great though. But going in, they're like, it's gritty and it's dark and it's realistic. And my vibe was like, we've done this, man. Like the character's silly. He's supposed to be weird and grotesque. Like Carnival-esque is the vibe you should be going for. Like something that's so warped and strange. Because it's a warped and strange story. So why are you trying to make it realistic all the time? But so that's why I like the Harley Quinn so much, because it's just like this is just crazy. Like that's crazy, right? Like we can have Poison Ivy like melting business executives in toxic waste to teach them a lesson, but she also has a talking plant voiced by Leon from Curb and stuff.
Because why not?
Yeah, it's like one of the best things about it and stuff. So, but yeah. So, but that will be, and people are just curious about Batman in general. 4 whole seasons we got.
4 whole seasons to go back and binge while you're waiting for that next one.
Yeah. And they're all pretty good. It just depends on what you're looking for. You can like look at first movie, which is a great movie, or you can listen to us talking about Batman and Robin, which is not a good movie at all, really.
But probably a fun time to listen to.
Oh yeah, we have fantastic time. Fantastic time recording.
There you go. So awesome.
The third season 2 got us through that pandemic too. Let me tell you, I was like, that was the lifeline for that was the what do you call him, friggin' Ian Griffith on the boat. Like I was in the water and I could just see like, the podcast.
Just the line.
We gotta keep going for the podcast.
I completely get that because sometimes you just need a little something. Awesome. Well, Niall, thank you so much for coming by, and I will talk to you very shortly, I'm sure, about more Batman stuff.
Yeah. Okay. No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Many, many thanks now for coming on the show and for talking to me about Titanic and Batman. And now I'm realizing that I genuinely don't know anything about comic books and stuff, which is fine. But you guys should definitely get in touch with, excuse me, I have the hiccups. With the show Bat Minute, there is a Facebook group, there is a Twitter, there is an Instagram for those. If you want to follow them on Twitter, it is twitter.com/batminute, all one word, BATMINUTE. They're on Instagram at instagram.com/thebatminute, all one word, THEBATMINUTE. And you can find them on Facebook. There is a Facebook group called the Listener's Cave, and that you can find at facebook.com/groups/batminute89, all one word, batminute89. And if you want to follow Niall himself, you can find him on his Instagram, and that is instagram.com/doodlesoup1989. That is all one word, DOODLESOUP1989. Again, thank you so much, Tim, for coming on, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.